Welcome to Idle Red Hands, a podcast from Japan about gaming and gamer life. This is Idle Red Hands! Welcome to Idle Red Hands. I'm Chris.
I'm Wayne.
I'm Lyle.
And I'm Christos.
Yeah, welcome back, Christos.
Kind of said that like a constipated person.
Well, he had to get down from like his gravelly.
I had to summon up my inner Leonidas, and yeah, he was deep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your method.
Yeah.
Method acting there is like just eat a lot of cheese and don't go to the bathroom.
Method. I stabbed 3 people on the way over. Just get in the mood.
I thought his method was just yell.
Oiled my chest. Yeah.
Didn't need to know that.
If you were really Greek, then you'd use your natural body oil for that.
This is true.
The constance plate of well-oiledness in the pectoral region.
Well, we should probably put on the olive oil now because we're all sitting here naked.
This
so
is true.
might as well just really commit. Probably slide off the sofa.
Yeah, don't get anything on the sofa. All right.
I do that in my spare time anyway.
Thanks.
Why are you here, Christos?
I'm here because I'm somewhat an authority, you could say, or more accurately, an example of our topic for today, which is the Greeks.
If you couldn't tell by the opening.
You know, you're going to regret saying you're an example when we get.
I was thinking that.
But that's fine. But we found out today that you're only half Greek.
Only the good half.
Only the good.
So you're half as oily as you described earlier.
No, I've got all the oil. 100% of the oil and 0% of the heroicness and philosophical bent. Yeah, so I really didn't come out well in that bargain, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're not very hairy either.
Yeah, that's true.
This episode is our first Warriors episode, and this is where we're going to spotlight a particular group of warriors from history and pull out the elements that we think make them quite interesting so that you can add that to your character. Not necessarily your warrior character, but just your character in general. Our debut is Hoplites. The Greek Hoplites.
As opposed to who other?
I don't know, I just wanted to make it more Greek.
All right. Just dump some olive oil on it there.
Little feta.
Spiraling down that hole.
So as part of our research, we watched Troy and 200.
200.
Sorry. 300. I didn't watch all of it. In preparation, so we get a real feel and get into the mood of what it is to be a Greek warrior, even though...
Which apparently by those 2 movies is screaming and running at other half-dressed men.
Which, hey, you got that half down, Chris.
You know it's true. He means the half-naked part, not the screaming. Still working on that.
People who've listened to past episodes, they know what I mean.
I always thought it funny in 300 when he's like, tell that to the boy lovers in Athens. Yeah, just tell that to the boy lovers in Athens, not the boy lovers here in Sparta.
Yeah, well, the joke was that they're boy lovers, but the Spartans were boys lovers because, yeah, those guys, they can only handle one boy at a time. Spartan men, we can handle more than 1, 2, 3.
Classroom.
I was going to make a Penn State joke there, but I decided not to.
Okay. Kinda did.
We are all regretting it.
I can feel my horizons shrinking with each second I listen to this podcast.
All right. So the first, Troy, leads into our first topic, and that's the Iliad and the concept of arete. It's the concept of excellence. And so I think when we think about the Greeks and when we watch, or when you read the Iliad, there's all these examples of people being great at certain things, and the Greek ideal was you should strive for excellence in all things.
So kind of like you said in the beginning, sort of, this wouldn't have to apply only to martial characters. Talking about if arete is sort of the striving for personal excellence in everything, then you could really apply that to any character type.
And I think the key word is in all things. Mm-hmm. It's not a word, anyway. It's the key.
Phrase. The key words.
Balance. Yeah. The exercising of all the various human traits.
Yeah.
Physical, mental, and emotional. I think that could also create really interesting dynamics in gameplay as well. Mm-hmm. Forcing characters to be a little more balanced and think of a lot of different ways of applying the character.
Yeah, the almost stereotypical big dumb fighter would actually be poorly looked upon in the Greek style.
So you'd have to be a jack of all trades and master of all.
Oh, well, of course, would be the ideal, yeah.
I guess as long as everyone was a jack of all trades, then you'd all be on equal footing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time you came to a specialist in any area, you'd be kind of in trouble. But I remember the Athenians actually made a big deal about being able to hold their own against the Spartans in war, despite the fact that the Spartans were very heavily military people who would train intensively from boyhood, whereas the Athenians, they had their leisure time. They were always striving for arete and a well-balanced life, and yet they were definitely able to, if not defeat, then at least fight the Spartans to draws in several encounters.
Yeah, they're actually better than them. Yeah, they were better naval power, superior naval power.
Right.
Yeah, but they did that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Where they would, you know, that scene in 300 where he says, "How many warriors did you bring? You know, what are you? Like, I'm a potter and that." But actually, the Athenians were like, "That's right, I'm a potter, and here I am with you, doing the same thing you are." Mm-hmm. So, like, how many warriors did we bring? Everybody, and I'm like, "Oh, big deal. That's all you can do."
Uh-huh.
The Spartans were very conservative, whereas the Athenians were more dynamic and actually much more aggressive.
You say they were more. What was the word you used for the Spartans?
I used
conservative.
Conservative, yeah.
Are you talking only in warfare? Or are you talking
politically, right?
Other aspects as well?
Politically and in warfare. Like the Athenians would be very expansionist because of the helots that the Spartans had, like the slave class. They couldn't send out their whole army because then the slaves would just revolt. Mm-hmm. So they had to be conservative in all things, and they struggled to adapt and change with the times.
No, I was just wondering if the term sort of, Spartan, meaning a lack of comfort or kind of a conservative outlook, would have come from that.
It would come from the lack of comfort, maybe not the outlook. But when we talk about the excellence, and the reason why we talk about the Iliad is in whatever game you have, if they have a resource that everybody goes back to. They have like a common vocabulary and a common, I guess it's a common history. And I think that is something to incorporate in the world. Like, it defines all the different types of excellence. So Achilles is the man killer, but he's also the swift-footed because they admire the speed as well as his proficiency in killing men.
So he can run fast and kill people. He's got it all.
Chase you down.
But even like a better example of arete from Homer would be Odysseus. This guy really was well balanced. One of the top tier warriors and men killers. And also, the most devious and cunning and intelligent, great leader and great athlete as well. Cases of him beating younger men in the funeral games. Plus, of course, a king of his own place and with his family and
family man. Just a great guy.
He's arete. What can you say?
You'd have a beer with him. Yeah. No, I actually think it is a good example, Odysseus. I'm not sure better than Achilles, the one I brought up, but
I love how Achilles is all around. He's physically strong and he's physically fast and he kills people really well.
And he kills people quickly.
Got that side of the circle covered.
Maybe just letting your idea of the movie Troy color your perceptions. Brad Pitt playing him.
Well, if that's true, then he's sexy as well. It's
all right. So he's got that.
He's a triple threat. No, but Odysseus is very devious, which is typically not something that you would respect. But because he's so excellent at being devious, then it elevates it to something that they could respect. They didn't really admire archers. But if you're really, really, really good at it, then you're like, well, that's excellent.
Right.
So it's arete. Yeah.
You're like the Bill and Ted of the ancient world. Excellent.
I didn't think about that. No, but so I guess it's kind of like, if you're going to be good at something, make sure you're really good at it.
But that, not exactly. It's like, if you're going to be good at something, make sure you're good at everything else too. I think was more the idea of arete. Focusing on something, specializing on something was kind of against that idea.
I'm certainly not disagreeing, but as we kind of said, Lyle's Odysseus and his deviousness example, kind of like, well, if that's kind of looked down on, but no, this guy's like so devious that, he's awesome at it. As a matter of fact, he's excellent at it. Well, then it's kind of celebrated. So I could see that kind of, not just picking something that's kind of negative,
but
and then being excellent
It's
at
not
it.
like Odysseus was known as being particularly devious. He was known as...
No, he's known as being particularly cunning and devious.
Oh.
The Trojan horse?
Well, that was just a good idea.
Yeah, but
Well, it's a good idea
devious
because it worked.
It was deception, though.
It's a good idea because it worked. If it hadn't worked, it wouldn't have been a good idea.
There's a nice story about how Odysseus was brought into the Trojan War, which was quite different from the movie Troy, where he's...
Where it
Where
didn't
he
actually
was
show-
just there? That's how he brought in, oh, I'm here, alright, how'd that happen? I don't know.
Ship brought him.
Oh, well, I watched the director's cut of Troy, which does show how he's brought into it.
How long
Do you
was
mean
that?
Achilles or
Odysseus.
Odysseus? Okay.
There's a scene, I don't know, have you seen? I don't know.
I believe I've seen the director's cut. I don't recall it showing him being brought into it.
There's
It
a
shows
scene
him
where-
bringing Achilles into it.
Where some of Agamemnon's men rock up to his farm and they see a guy just sitting on the ground, like it looked like a farmer. It's like, where is King Odysseus? And he's like, oh, that guy, I hate that guy. He tried to sleep with my wife. I had to punch him in the face. And they're like, how dare you talk about, your king like that? And then he's like laughing, and it turns out it actually he's Odysseus the whole time.
Yeah, but he was trying to hide so he wouldn't have to go to war.
That's...
So if you're going to be a coward,
Are you talking
be an
about
excellent
movie or,
coward.
No, I'm talking about the myth. I haven't seen that part in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, like, he has a bit of a joke with the soldiers and then reveals who he is.
Yeah.
Just goes along quite happily. Like in the myth, or in Homer, he pretends to be insane so that they
Also a good actor.
won't take him along. And his example of insanity is ploughing a beach, which is, a blatantly useless act. And so he's, just pulling a plough by himself along the sand. But the soldiers actually outsmart him and place his newly born son in the direction of the plough, in the path of the plough, so that he'll have to kill his son. To
Which he doesn't
maintain
do.
his act. Yeah, and he has to give it up. And
Also a great
go along.
father.
Good thing they get
That's
that.
the family man part. Yeah.
Maybe if they went with any random child, I wonder what would have happened. Keep
Also
on plowing.
great at plowing over kids. And he's got everything.
So we put Mark's son over there. Oh, we cut him in half. Guess he's not Mark. Okay.
Let's see if he'll do it again.
John's son.
Let's see if he'll do it again. Wow, he's also great at determination. He just keeps on going.
This guy, an excellent plower.
If he's like this for Greeks, imagine what he'd be like for Trojans. We've got to recruit him now.
Yeah, bring that plow. Actually, it's actually the horse. It's all the horse. Or the bull, the ox. No, but some people look at the Iliad and they think that Homer contradicts himself because he talks about courage or people being very honorable, but then there's examples where people are devious or cunning and they're getting respect for that as well. But the idea is just, if you're so excellent and great at one thing, then you deserve respect. And you don't necessarily have to be... I mean, you should strive for excellence in all things. Right? Most people won't achieve that.
But the oddity, did that kind of extend to, like, once someone's recognized...
Odyssey.
As opposed to what?
Isn't it the Odyssey?
No, I'm talking about the
Greek
idea.
ideal of excellence.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not talking...
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm like...
We're still stuck in the raisin mode.
They're doing like Space Oddity.
No. I thought I said it right. Right. The concept being a peak example of whatever ideal they're representing. Did people like stop challenging them? But is it kind of like, okay, wow, no, he's the best archer, which means nobody else is really going to come close to him. I'm just wondering where kind of like competition came into that. Like, could you bump someone out of being like the top in their field? And was that kind of seen as like a positive thing? Like, should you always kind of keep trying to compete and improve your skill to get up to the level of, or even surpass this guy? Or is it kind of like, no, that slot's taken, I should focus on something else because someone already has that slot?
Well, that brings us to our next topic, which is Agon, or...
Achon? Was it?
Odysseus isn't the
Argon?
only one who's
Argon?
devious, my friend.
Oh, Wayne, you clever man. Don't put a baby in front of him. Or actually, maybe you could. Which is the idea of where you compare, or competition, or comparing all similar things together, and determining which one is greater, which one is lesser, or if they're equal. I mean, the concept of competition was so much that even when Alexander the Great, when they're marching through Persia and that, they would stop and have games, like Olympic-style games. And of course there is the Olympics.
I could see that would be pretty interesting. It kind of reminds me of like a different thing, but it kind of reminded me of like a Game of Thrones, where Renly would kind of stop to have tournaments, and they did it for different reasons. But in the Alexander the Great example, I guess it could be not really. I guess ultimately it was a way to kind of pacify the army as it was moving. But I guess for Alexander the Great, it was like, no, we have this idea. We always kind of have to see who's best, and have these competitions. So having the competitions would be a way to kind of keep people happy. Whereas in the Game of Thrones example, it was more like a distraction, kind of keeping people happy. But I mean, the ultimate goal is probably to keep people in line and keep them happy.
Yeah, just something to occupy their minds while they're on these interminable marches through Persia. Yeah, something to sharpen their minds and their bodies and.
Yeah, still make sure they're in peak physical form.
Yeah. And I guess it addresses what you were asking before about if there's just the one guy that you shouldn't even bother competing. I think obviously those kind of games and the Olympic Games is all in the spirit of constantly trying to improve yourself, be the best you can be the person who takes that top spot. Apparently, people who won the pentathlon, was a run, a discus throw, and
three other events.
Three other events. Some kind,
Wrestling, maybe?
Possibly.
Oh, there was like two types of... wasn't one you were a sprint in heavy armor?
Yep, right. Boxing might have been involved too.
All at the same time.
The winner of that apparently would be awarded free dinners for life in the public square.
What they didn't tell you is that the meals are pretty crappy.
All the feta cheese you can eat.
This fat guy walking out there, I won the pentathlon.
Hey, if you're going to be good at something, be good at something. I'm the fattest man in the world.
Eating's a thing too.
Yeah.
He was known as the best eater in the land.
But don't give up.
I'm really
someone else could
all-around guy.
surpass
I can
him.
handle
I'm an all-round guy. No, really, I'm all-round. Look at me.
Fantastic.
It's kind of funny, though, like, okay, you have these games while you're on the march. I imagine, okay, not everyone would participate, but I imagine most of the people would. So it kind of begs the question, like, man, when everyone's tired out from that pentathlon, wouldn't that be a good time for the Persians to attack?
Theoretically, they probably wouldn't know when they're on the horizon, I'd imagine.
I know, I agree with
Persians
that.
are there. Somebody give me a discus.
When they actually fought each other, they would really respect, the games are pretty sacred. And they would observe all the holidays. They would halt the war to do their festivals and their games. Persians probably wouldn't respect it.
I was going to ask if the Persians...
Well, no, I think
Persians are not Greek, so...
Yeah, I think when the Greeks fought it. We all know Persians are orcs. Haven't you seen 300?
Our comment goes... The episode's alright, but I really liked how Lau pointed out the Persians were not Greeks. I learned something every episode. No matter how obvious.
Yeah. Sometimes things just have to be said.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't.
All right.
But that concept of competition, though, it helps their courage because the type of battles that they had were pretty full on and pretty frightening. Mm-hmm. But no one is going to back down in front of his companions. So that would encourage everybody to be courageous and not to flee. Except when they did flee. Yeah. then they would compete to see who could flee the fastest.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to be good at something, be good at something.
First!
He was excellent at being a coward.
Yeah.
I read something
the ancient Greek origin of the first commenter of YouTube, of internet fame now. Whenever something new is posted on the internet, everyone will race to be first. First!
Oh, I've seen that, yeah. Just on a thread or whatever.
Yep. It's kind of annoying.
But I read something interesting about the helmets that they wore. At least the kind of the helmets that we would imagine a hoplite would wear, where it covers their face. And they said one of the advantages of that was people couldn't see that you were afraid. The people next to you couldn't see that you were afraid. So
keep morale up.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That's actually pretty interesting.
You couldn't see that you were being outflanked.
They could still hear you screaming.
They could hear you scream.
or your muffled cries.
I was going to go further. They could hear the stream of urine pouring down your leg. You're like, oh.
Yeah, but that's why they would have the skirts, because then it just kind of just went down. And
save the laundry.
No, but it wouldn't you wouldn't see a wet spot on their pants.
I don't think anyone's looking down at their neighbor's crotch when they're in the sailing.
They had it all covered.
They invented the first diapers? What?
All right, we're kind of sounding less and less badass as we're talking.
These diaper-wearing warriors with a scourge of...
But if you have your character, then I think that person would be very competitive with the others. And of course, if they all come from that same culture, whatever culture it is, then they would be competitive with themselves.
I was kind of wondering about that.
And it would be encouraging them.
Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Go ahead.
No, because I was thinking about that with competition and, if you're playing in a game And yeah, so if all the characters came from the same city-state or the same region where you were having this mock Greece, we'll call it, then...
Well, I'm not even saying it has to be Greece, but if, you could have a science fiction setting.
Okay.
And if they're importing these Grecian elements, then, yeah, one of them would be, if one of them is Agon, then that's how it manifests itself, as they would be very competitive with each other.
And looking at this episode, I came across a game called Agon, and that was a big part of it. It's a game by Jim Harper. It looked pretty good. It was designed for a one-shot, and for the different actions that the player characters get, they get, like, glory points, and they should compete against each other. That's the whole purpose of the game. There is a winner at the end. So it's a little different from normal role-playing games.
This might be a little bit off track, but at the end of some role-playing sessions, not always, but sometimes obviously you get an experience point award. Generally, I think the GM would try to divide that fairly evenly between everyone, so everyone advances at the same level. But if you're using kind of this idea of competition, would you possibly use it even on a metagame level and award, like, more points to the player of that session who kind of was the best in competition?
Absolutely. Oh, like, actually, until I started playing with you guys, we'd always done awarding experience points on a per-player basis, not as a group.
Yeah, we're the socialism of role-playing.
We're the role-playing Obamas.
But, because...
You just got that?
No, yeah. I got the joke, but then I kind of like the sound in my head again. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Yeah. I pictured us as the Obama brothers. That was funny to me.
Oh.
All right. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm laughing in my head too loud. Anyway, I was saying, if there are groups that feel that points should be awarded more fairly, maybe make a track out of it. Like, specific things would gain you experience points. For example, like killing monsters or achieving goals or being the person to get something. Like, if you're on a quest, the person who actually gets their hands on the keys of Ventuzler or whatever.
I guess maybe I looked at it from a different angle, because I guess coming from, like, D&D, it's always like, the monsters the party fought or whatever they did, here's their total lump sum experience divided by 5 or divided by however many points you get, and that's
Give it to the person who lands the killing blow.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that. I was just wondering if it kind of follows the spirit in like a metagame type of way, but unless your group is really going to embrace it, I could see it as being like a problem, especially if like the same person gets it week after week.
Well, I guess if it's a one-shot, then you're not going to have week after week. But yeah, I would do it in the metagame sense. Like, you could really capture the spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think with the monster thing, absolutely the person who lands the last blow. Compete against each other. For my return, I shove him out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's an example, like in the Iliad, or there's actually a few examples, but one of them is, I forget the other Trojan, but he stabs this guy, this Greek, and then Hector stabs him again, and it's kind of a killing blow.
And the guy was already dying?
Yeah, but he was already dying, so it was debatable. So they were kind of arguing over who should get the guy's armor and weapons.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing he didn't get stabbed through the armor, because then no one would want it.
Yeah. You can have the big breastplate with a hole.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But you kind of think of Hector as pretty noble and the ultimate Trojan. But here you see him kind of being a little bit devious in kind of stealing the other guy's kill.
No, he's just the ultimate scavenger.
Oh, there you go. You'd be great in all things.
Big Trojan jerk.
Yep, he was also the ultimate haggler. No, I get the armor. Never.
Sword blocker.
Yeah, but you could do that. I mean, obviously it would probably be more efficient to everybody cooperate to take down that monster, but if everybody then is trying to get that killing blow, I think that would be very, very Greek. That'd be very Greek of you.
I could see that. I could actually see that being kind of fun.
Yeah, everybody's jostling for that position. And yeah, if there's one suit of armor, it's not like you're going to be able to split that, like our Obama style.
Okay, let's sell it, and then we split it all 5 ways. No, but then one of the players one of the characters isn't from that society. Well, because I was thinking, if you only have one character sort of from this kind of Greek-inspired society,
the other characters will hate him.
Well, yeah, I could see that being really annoying. It could be like a character quirk if this guy or this character is always competing, but it could also kind of end up being like an annoyance, to the other players. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of, it's not the same thing, but you think of like Star Trek and like, the Klingon, right? Like they're always talking about, I'm not saying that Greeks are Klingons, but you have this one.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, just the way Greeks are not Persians, just the way Persians are not Greeks, right? Listen, you have this one guy who's kind of always talking about ways to kill people and honor, and it's interesting, but it also kind of gets annoying because no one else is sort of buying into that, and it's like eventually just want to say, "Oh, knock it off." And so,
yeah, but Greeks are. I mean, I wasn't planning to bring this up, but there's like a lot of famous speeches and famous philosophers came out of ancient Greece. So you could see the guy kind of would be trying to like convert the others to his way of or her way of thinking.
And they would probably be even combative in that. I mean, winning in a debate was just as important as winning on a battlefield.
Yeah.
Imagine a character who's always arguing with you.
I can say, "Oh, you're not gonna compete against me, oh, you little weenie. Oh, I guess I win at competing too. I'm just the best at competing."
You're so Greek, Wayne. Got to get your book of speeches. And there's even one example of Thebes. You know, Thebes. How do you pronounce that? Thebes?
I read
Thebes.
the myths. The Greek myths.
Was that like the 8th city?
Haha.
Yeah.
The Thebians. I think that's better. The Thebians had this group of warriors called the Sacred Band, and what they were was 150 homosexual couples.
300.
Hey, there you go, 300. Yeah, that was 300. Yeah, I didn't do the math there, but yeah, that is the...
I could tell by the look on your face when
Yeah.
you're just like, wait a minute.
Actually, I was pretty disappointed when it went to 300 and it wasn't about them. What?
Couples.
It wasn't?
I thought it was a love story. But the idea is that they would, and they were kind of strange because one guy would carry the shield and the other guy would carry the spear.
Oh, the real spear.
Yeah, the real spear.
They even had-
But yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you see that metaphorically, then that's actually, quite good.
Sorry, go ahead.
We know who carries the shield in this relationship. But they...
Well, but the rationale is that, yeah, 'cause it gets back into the competition of courage, is you're not going to back down in front of your lover. And it wasn't, not so much of, because you don't want to abandon your lover to the fates of, the Persians or the other whoever's attacking, but you wouldn't want to lose face in front of your lover. Again, it gets into that idea of Agon, the competition.
These pairings had designated roles too, right?
Yeah, one guy carrying the spear, the other guy carrying the shield.
Like, yeah, they had titles as well.
Spear guy.
Like older, younger kind of thing going on, right? The older guy, like the warrior, the guy with the spear. Mm-hmm. And the younger guy was kind of like a...
Well, it's almost like a squire.
Yeah, right.
It was a warrior in training.
Yeah,
well,
right.
and it wasn't even just in warriors. It was that was a big part of Greek culture, from what I read. There was kind of this internship mentality with younger boys and older men.
So that's our third topic, and that's homosexuality.
Could I just ask something for a second? Like you said,
Homosexuality is when two people have the
not that, you...
He knows that.
And this is the point where Christos regrets being the example.
Yeah, I was thinking that. No, when you said they had, the pairings had, like, roles, that didn't extend to the battlefield as well, did it? Because, like, if one guy was the shield guy and one guy was the spear guy, I'm thinking like Russia, where one guy got the rifle and the guy behind him just got the magazine.
Yeah, that was less of
They didn't.
No. I wasn't equating that to being couples, but what I'm wondering is, like, then when the couples hit the battlefield, did both people have a spear and shield of their own, or did they have to fight as like a couple even on the battlefield? That's what I'm getting at.
they fought as a couple on the battlefield.
With one set of spear and shield?
Remember, they also did the phalanx formations. So
Yeah, but in phalanx, like, everybody had a spear and a shield.
Yeah, other people. Yeah, they also didn't consist of homosexual couples.
Well,
Like this was a special idea.
Right.
It was actually a very elite unit.
I see what Wayne's saying though. Like, did the shield guy participate in the fight?
That's what I'm asking.
Was the shield guy killing anyone, or was he just standing around
his
with the
only
shield?
role was protecting the spear guy.
That's it.
I don't know.
All right. But apparently you can say anything with conviction and I believe you.
Well, from what I read, they actually shared the same equipment,
Wow, that's kind of harsh.
indicating that. Yeah,
So one was offensive, one was defensive.
yeah.
Man, you really had to have train. I imagine you have to train for a long time to have two people fight as, like, essentially what I see as like a single person.
Yeah, they were actually, unlike a lot of the other hoplites, they were not militia. I believe they were actually soldiers. Yeah. But they were key in defeating the Spartans. Thebes enjoyed a brief period of dominance.
So the Thebians really should have been the boy lovers.
Tell the boy lovers in but they
It
loved
was
men.
a general Greek thing.
Yeah. And probably homosexuality was more institutionalized in Sparta than anywhere else.
But I was surprised, like,
Except for the Thebes example I just said.
I'd heard that about the homosexuality thing, but from what I read, it sounded like homosexuality was looked down upon when it was a man and another man. Whereas with a man and a boy that he was training, it was okay.
Having sex with children was taboo, but when they get like a teenager,
and that was how it was. Under 12 was no good. Yeah. And after the boy was able to grow a beard, then when he was considered a man, and then it was looked down upon. Perhaps not as taboo, not taboo like being a child, but
if once you reach adulthood, or you're like a man, and you are still in the passive role, the receiving role, yeah, I guess you would call that a bottom.
The catching,
yeah, you were considered very weak and feminine. So you didn't want to be a passive man. Like, you didn't want to be a bottom in the Greek world.
There's a whole competition thing. You didn't want to be the guy who relents.
Oh, so you wrestle around. And,
yeah, exactly.
The compromise is the sideways.
So what was okay there was teenagers to young men.
Yeah.
Slaves, apparently, was acceptable.
I can kind of see slaves not counting.
If you're a really desperate woman.
There's a historian named Keto, and he takes issue. Like, a lot of historians say that the women had a very bad lot in Greek society. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would say, sure, it wasn't equal by any means, but some of the comments, like from Pericles or something like, you shouldn't speak of a woman either positively or negatively. Paraphrasing there. He said, some people interpret that as like, they're like non-entities, but he says you could also just interpret it that you shouldn't really be gossiping about people's wives and daughters. Hmm. So
if you must speak of them neutrally.
Yeah. So Greek men would have sex with women, obviously.
Because there are still Greeks. So.
Yeah.
But they don't.
The society lasts longer than a generation.
I also read that lesbianism was looked down on as well. Women were not allowed to be with other women. Or not allowed. I didn't mean not allowed, but it was frowned upon. But there was also the famous poet, Sophia, was it? She's famous for writing like hundreds and hundreds of poems to her lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, yeah.
And there's the whole myth of the island of Lesbos, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Amazons.
Yeah.
The Amazons.
The
Amazons. Yeah, but you look at the stories like Perseus. He rescues Andromeda. So, I mean, you still have the concept of heterosexual love. Yeah.
Hopefully so.
Well, Zeus had his bi-curious stages too, right?
Well, Zeus was just horny.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't think
Boys,
it really mattered
girls,
for
humans,
Zeus.
animals.
Did he have sex with men?
Did he have sex with women?
Hold on, is he Greek or not?
Wasn't he the god involved with Ganymede? Don't know that myth.
Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't researched this recently, so I believe, Zeus may have, had a homosexual fling with one particularly pretty boy.
I'm guessing no Greek hero sprang from that union.
Hey, I think it was born out of Zeus's head.
That's true. All right. In the traditional manner.
Dionysus came out of his thigh. Well, obviously we're focusing on the homosexual aspects, not to say that all Greeks are homosexuals, even in the ancient world. But it's just different.
Adds a whole new dynamic to the male-only game group, doesn't it?
Yeah, and really, if you want to put this into your game, by all means.
But if you take the concept of the sacred band, where they would fight harder or they wouldn't want to show cowardice in front of their lover, even if you had a heterosexual pairing, but you have that in your game group where like kind of like lovers are in the party or in that group, then they just like the agon, they would spur each other on. Or if you look at like a Sparta example where you have like the institutionalized patronship or apprenticeship, as you would say. Like, so if you have a medieval squire, but he does more than just carry the lance, you know.
All right. I like how you nudged me when you said that one too. That actually would be an interesting, maybe not gaming experiment, but I wonder, not that you...
Different kind of experiment.
Get your mind out of the spear holders. All right, geez.
So we're talking about homosexuality.
Yeah.
Where else would it be?
Right?
I didn't mean that, but...
Okay, all right.
I was thinking, if the characters in the group, right, if you sort of paired them up, either same-sex couples, since we are talking about homosexuality, or if you had, same-sex, no, that's the same-sex, no, or if you had opposite-sex couples, would that come through in the game session? Like, if you had, if the group composed of pairs of lovers, whatever gender, would you kind of see that come through, the kind of putting on a brave act or not showing cowardice in front of your lover? That's what I thought would be an interesting experiment, to sort of set up a game where the characters each had a lover inside the group, and to see if that would happen.
I'm sure many people have run campaigns before where two of the pieces.
Yeah, but I would mean everybody in the party kind of start off as pairs.
Yeah, the whole party is like a sacred band. I don't know. I just want to broaden it a little bit. But if you give them an extra relationship, so you even make them, for example, siblings, not sibling lovers, but siblings, then that's an extra relationship that they would have beyond being fellow adventurers or beyond being fellow crew people on a
or
starship.
Being spear holders. I like how we're handling this with maturity and integrity. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I guess the main point is having someone you have to be aware of all the time just as an extra element in your decision-making process in the game. How are my decisions going to reflect on this person? What are they going to think of me? And also, what do I have to do to take care of them in the course of my adventure?
If you ever read like a 40 Warhammer 40k book, and you have like the Space Marines, and they are asexual.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's all about brotherhood and their brothers. So, and of course,
kind of a non-sexual way to do it.
Yeah, it's a non-sexual way to do it. Is they're not actual siblings or they're not actual lovers, but the best parts of those books is when that comes to the surface of how they feel about their brothers, and then they don't want to let their brothers down, or even the petty rivalry or the sniping. It's almost like siblings. Or if you look at it from a different angle, it could even be like lovers.
I guess I'm kind of understanding now the idea of like a ceremony to enter whatever group you're a part of, because then you do kind of become like, it's another bond. You know, now you're kind of part of this family, whether it's like a military unit or a sacred band or like a wedding or something like that. Then I think that would be kind of interesting. Yeah. You could kind of broaden this idea out to a bunch of different relationships.
I mean, you could pretty heavily ritualize it as well. I mean, you could have like blood brothers where they share blood. Space Marines, they change their DNA, I suppose. They take on the gene seed.
Oh yeah.
So they actually, in one sense, they are actually family, or in the Greek example, they exchange certain fluids.
Well, and everybody's just thinking about something.
No, I had something and then just like disappeared when I heard fluid.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
Sorry, was that a bit too coy?
No, what else was I gonna do? Oh, it's about the beauty. I don't know if this is related. Maybe this might be a little a side issue, but the idea of beauty or anything worth having is worth striving for and worth sacrifice. And that's a very Greek concept. So like beauty always comes with a price. Not only do they admire the opposite sex form, but they would also admire the same sex form.
Beauty is beauty.
Beauty is beauty. Yeah. And there's a book called Gates of Fire, which is actually better than the movie 300, but it's about the same battles. Yeah, Gates of Fire. It's like the Spartans. Like one guy was like really handsome, so the other guy busts his nose just to mar his beauty a bit because he hates him. Yeah, and just different things like that, like the kind of petty jealousy that you might encounter between lovers or siblings. Yeah, it can just come to the surface if you incorporate that into your game.
Who stole my oil scraper?
Yeah, no, they also wanted to look beautiful on the battlefield. Even the Spartans wore their hair longer than the other Greeks. Mm-hmm. But they always took pride in that even on the battlefield they looked good and that their hair looked good.
Like do that, oh, you got me out. How's my hair? Oh, no, fix it.
It's like the David Beckhams of the ancient world. Always like, take a shot on net, fix the hair.
Perhaps that's why 300 was fast, slow time, and look how beautiful I am.
Yeah, no, Gates of Fire opens up with a battle, and the first thing they do is make sure that their hair is nicely oiled and dressed. A little primping. I think a little little primping would make any warrior a bit better. Striving for excellence, right. Even in your hair.
Shield, spear, and mirror. Very important.
We've all seen the original Clash of the Titans, right? The back of that mirrored shield.
Harry Hamlin was gorgeous. I'll say this about Harry Hamlin over Sam Worthington is he looked more Greek.
He also looked prettier.
Yeah, but his hair was more Greek in my eyes.
Well, yeah,
I suppose like the buzz cut.
Yeah, Sam Worthington didn't have any hair.
Extremely Greek on that one.
Yeah. Perhaps he went for the excellence in hair shaving.
Yeah, if I'm going to have short hair, I'm going to have the shortest hair there is.
All the other Greeks, mine's going to be shorter.
Bald guy walks by. Ooh, well done. Well done, sir.
Free dinners for life.
All right, this brings us to our last point, which is actually about the Hoplites and talking about that
Finally.
Sorry, homosexuality was it?
Now we're talking about real spears. All right. Again, how did you not see that connection?
I saw the connection.
I just didn't want to say it.
No, I can sometimes, you take a joke and you move it around in your mind a little bit, and I truly appreciate it, like a fine wine. And that, sir, was a fine wine.
Champagne comedy.
So just a little background. The Hoplites are the soldiers that would fight in a phalanx. Where they would all have like a big round shield, a spear, as Wayne has been constantly reminding us, and a short sword, and heavy armor.
And an interesting point about the shields was it protected the guy to your left, so that you'd have the guy on the utmost right side would be only half protected by his own shield and have no one to overlap with him.
Yeah, that's why they usually tried to put the most experienced warriors on the right side, because they would be sort of better able to defend themselves than just one person.
And if somebody flanked them and attacked you from that side,
Exactly, that'd be both sides trying to outflank themselves on that side at the same time. That was a major tactic.
I heard that's also why kind of the ranks would close in to the left side, because, as obviously guys died in the line, you'd kind of move over to the left to either, get behind the shield of the guy to your left.
To shore up your wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually the strategy would be they would try to attack from the right so that their weak side wasn't exposed to the guys.
I just had this real comedic image of two lines of
circling
guys
each
kind
other.
of circling each other. Come on, go right, go right, go right.
No, I wonder. I mean, that was a tactic that both armies would have used. That's probably a very realistic view.
Yeah.
That's how the Thebans, when I said the sacred band contributed in beating the Spartans. The other thing is they used the oblique tactic where he just stacked the one side, where normally they would have, and I forget the numbers, but let's say they had 10 ranks is the normal, he had 30.
But just all on one point, right?
Yeah, and it was all about turning the other phalanx. So when the Greeks fought each other, it was all about you would have that mass push, and then you would try to turn the other side so that they would flee. Christos said it earlier, or maybe before the episode, about the hoplite are very much tied to the idea of a city-state where everybody fights and contributes together. So that even with the shield, everybody's contributing together.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of read that that's sort of why the whole idea of the hoplite kind of style of warfare came about. It's because you had militia, and as we said in that kind of 300 joke, they all had jobs outside of being soldiers. So they had jobs to get back to, whether they were farmers or whoever else. And so the military campaigns at that time were very short because you couldn't afford to do these long campaigns because, hey, people had to go back to work, essentially.
You would run out of food.
Yeah, exactly.
Even to the extent where both sides would schedule time and place to meet and fight. No Sun Tzu or out of war here. Hey guys, let's just meet at a mutually convenient spot and
that's why the courage was so important, because they wanted to have that one decisive battle, and that was very unusual in the ancient world, where they would have skirmishers and they would flee and hide, but they said, no, it's all going to happen now, and you charge each other, which is very much against human nature, is charging towards death. Also the phalanx was good because it was kind of easy. You didn't have to be very skilled, you just have to be courageous.
Right, doesn't need much training.
And that's why one of the excellences is alke, courage.
But I always wondered, what are most of the guys, at the back doing in this phalanx, apart from pushing? Do they even need these weapons at all?
Encouragement as well.
I can see
to step in, but definitely to push, because you don't want to have the front rank start to turn, because the phalanx wasn't very maneuverable.
Yeah, apparently from what I read, there'd be the initial exchange of spears, and then but once they're really packed in tightly together, it did basically become a pushing match to see who could push their side.
Rugby scrum.
Yeah, break the other teams.
Yeah, I kind of saw what I read. I kind of personally broke it down into three phases. First, there was the charge, where you either kind of marched up to be within spear's length of the enemy, or you ran in if you were trying to sort of panic the opposition, or if they had archers, and then you would kind of fight with spears for a little while, and then if that wasn't decisive, then the front ranks would close in and use swords, and then the guys behind the front rank would either support with their spears, and then also just, like we said, pushing with their shields, right, so that the front rank didn't kind of give ground or get turned. If that kind of wasn't decisive, there's something that was called the Othismos.
What?
How dare you mangle it?
That means mass push.
Yeah, basically the commanders at certain times would call for a certain number of steps forward, and then there would be this sort of push, 3 steps or 5 steps, I forget however many, to kind of essentially, crush against the enemy and try and panic them and have them run.
It's a pretty simple strategy, and it's funny, an innovation, and this is Alexander's father, Philip. I think Philip II, where he just has the innovation of having longer spears. So more guys can fight, like more of the back ranks can fight.
That happened around like the 8th century.
Philip II was 4th century.
Oh, really? All right.
Well, that's about the end of the phalanx, hey?
Exactly. Yep. Alex.
They still had it a little bit. It lasted until because the Romans had the phalanx. And then the Romans changed to I think it's pronounced the maniply, which is what our traditional, our typical concept or stereotypical concept of the Roman legions and how they fight. And that was just much more effective. It was much more maneuverable and versatile. And then they were beating the phalanx and, it was gone. But even the Greeks after the Peloponnesian War started going away from the hoplite. They started to see a role for experienced sailors, for example, because the Athenians were always winning the battles because they had the most experienced navy. And then they would have these experienced, what they call them, peltants? No, peltats. Like javelin throwers, skirmishers. But it actually involved a broader skill set than what a hoplite would have. But they would put these guys up against Spartan hoplites, who were the best hoplites around, and they would beat them because they would come in, throw their javelins, then the hoplites would have to break ranks to chase them in their heavier armor. They would flee, and the Spartans would just start to get whittled away and get increasingly more tired. And also the phalanx can't fight on broken ground, so major innovation is people would attack them on broken ground, so they couldn't get into their formation.
So you're saying they invented broken ground?
No, they invented the concept of attacking a guy on broken ground, I guess.
It's like that major innovation. Hey.
But that's why they would schedule it.
Just didn't show up,
But if both people have a phalanx and are using it, of course, when they schedule the battle, they would pick a site where the phalanx can set up and fight. And people think, stuff that. Let's just attack.
Yeah, right.
It's just such a gentlemanly way of conducting
really
war, right? It's like, war wasn't like, even that, as if the outcome wasn't even the most important thing. It's just they had to decide this contest between the two of them.
Okay, next Tuesday isn't good for me. How about you?
We will crush your armies! Next Wednesday, okay? Around 6 o'clock.
It was like a sport, in a sense. I mean, it was very serious, but they would bicker over who won because they had this idea, like, if you won the battle, you would put like your trophy on the battlefield, like maybe like a suit of armor or something. You just prop it up, and so you say, "We won the battle," and then they would argue.
Someone comes and kicks it over. It's like,
no, exactly. It'd be like,
it's like, no, it's
what did you do? You guys didn't win this battle. Why are you guys putting this trophy up? And they're like, well, we're still around to put the trophy up. And he goes, well, we just left because we thought we'd won.
All right, back to the battlefield.
All right, let's fight again.
But you can kind of see that with the whole philosophy of Agamemnon, that people would just compete for the sake of competing. Athens had a really big pride point of being able to beat Sparta. How are you going to know that you can still beat Sparta unless you fight them?
Now, from what I read, the battles were also decisive because, like, every rank had of the phalanx had a leader in it. And so, kind of this lead from the front idea. And I guess you could kind of say if the battle was decisive or not based on how much of the opposition.
You have left.
Yeah, essentially how much of the opposition's, like, head guys you killed. You know?
Have you guys ever played Command and Colors, Ancients? Yeah.
Oh, no, I heard of it.
It's a pretty good two-player board game set in the ancient world. And, leaders play a very big part in that. Like, having a leader attached to your group will give them extra dice rolls and things like that.
That's interesting, because only the Spartans really had an officer class. Like the Athenians and the other Greeks, you could be a private in one battle, and then a general in the next.
Right.
And they had the concept of to rule and be ruled. And it just means that, because it's like a militia, like after the battle, everybody disperses. And then the next battle, they pick who the general is going to be.
Ooh, me. Can I be the general next time?
Yeah.
Maybe they just didn't have any ranks in between private and general.
No, they didn't. They had, like, you were the leader, and then you're everybody else.
Oh, wow.
And they thought the Spartan concept of having all these different ranks, because they had more than just, like, a leader and everybody else, but they would actually have, like, I think an equivalent of a sergeant and a captain. But yeah, whoever was picked to be the leader, then, would kind of lead from the front. But yeah, I didn't see, if you kill the guy, then who cares? It's like, he was just the leader this battle. You know?
Yeah, but he was the leader.
Yeah. Oh, we lost our leader. No.
Yeah.
Like, I can see the guy arguing. He's like, yeah, well, he was just some peasant you picked this time. Yeah, no, but he was the leader. He was the leader for this one. I killed the leader. No, you killed some peasant. Ah, screw you.
Well, I guess if you have a very ritualized combat, then it's like, well, all right. Well, I guess we lost this one.
Yeah.
All right.
Most if you're doing a tactic that doesn't need any special training or thought, really, then, what does it matter?
No, I think you got to think to thrust your spear. You know?
Now, how we would apply the kind of like the it's very difficult to like transport the phalanx into a game because you generally don't play with 30 other guys. And it's like, all right, everybody line up. Start rolling those dice. But the idea that the most important thing in battle is not your skill, even though you're striving for excellence in all things, but it's your courage. the willingness to stand up to whatever and fight that decisive battle and not run away and back down.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that too. I was thinking like if you were designing a character, you would probably give leadership skills and rather than just kind of raw brute strength, especially if you're kind of a character who used to fight in a phalanx formation.
So,
All right, that takes us to the end. So that was the first in our warrior series. So we put the spotlight on hoplites, and in the future we'll pick other warriors in history and see what elements we can draw from them to make your characters, be they warriors or not, better.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us again on Idle Red Hands. Check us out online. You can listen to the podcast on our website, through Stitcher, through DriveThruRPG. Post up there on the forums, on the webpage, and Facebook, or any of the other places. Send us an email too. You have a chance at winning that contest with DriveThruRPG. I think the chances are 50-50 right now. So see what happens. All right.
Spirit of competition.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
DriveThruRPG. We average 9 new titles a day. That's over 60 a week. And we've got well over 15,000 RPG titles online right now. DriveThruRPG, the one true source for RPGs.
Idle Red Hands, recorded in Kobe, Japan. See us online at www.idleredhands.com. Music provided by Tripod Jimmy, and the song was Roadkill. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.